Okay, and I can see your screen.
All right. Okay, thank you. So this is a more recent historical archaeology project. My name is Thomas Carr. I'm a contracting archaeologist. I used to be with History Colorado for many years, but I've been doing independent work now for 5 years. And I work with Pinyon Environmental primarily. And this is a project that Pinyon staff historian Poppie Gullet and I did over the course of 4 years, from 2016 to 2020, on and off. It's kind of a mitigation documentation project in Boulder. And I know some of you went to either undergrad or grad school at Boulder, so you might have some recollection, some connection to these places along the creek. So when I went to Boulder, I actually lived downtown Boulder, northwest of the campus, and I would have to walk through the study, what became the study area that I worked on here. This is back in the early 90s, from like 93 to 97. And I lived in downtown, and the anthropology department is in the Hale Science Building on the west side of the campus. So I'd have to get across the creek, and getting across the creek's always been an issue in Boulder, and flooding's always been an issue in Boulder. So you can see in this 1926 map that there were bridges at 24th and 17th. There wasn't one at 19th. There was a possible the pedestrian bridge at 21st may have been in existence at this time, but I recall for myself there was a footbridge at 19th and at 21st, and then there was another more modern bridge here at called the Stadium Bridge to get to campus. And then so here's the study area. The 19th Street Bridge, the 21st Street Bridge, these are both historic bridges, the Stadium Bridge, which is a newer bridge, and then all this interesting stonework that I actually have photographs from the 90s when because I'm also a photographer and I take pictures of everything everywhere I go. And so I remember seeing these things and wondering, what is this? There's these stone retaining walls that were pretty elaborate, these very nice bridges, and then this really odd little stone structure with a fireplace. And I seem to recall one of the professors telling me that it was a warming hut for an ice rink. It was down in the floodplain. And so I kind of knew that. So now fast forward to the 2013 floods. As we all know, the Front Range was really devastated by these floods, and Boulder was hit pretty hard. Boulder Creek overflowed and washed out portions of the road. And when you get down into the Boulder floodplain, you had really widespread flooding. And this picture on the right was near Boulder High School, which is right near the study area, just west of the study area. So you can see this is way up by the school. So the area along the creek was heavily flooded. And what happened was it actually washed out the structure of the 19th Street pedestrian bridge. The 21st Street pedestrian bridge remained intact, but its footings were undermined, not enough to where they closed it, but they were damaged. And then the Stadium Bridge was still there. So by 2016, the university, they needed to get better access from some of the family and campus housing from there to the athletic facilities on the South Ridge, where it's much higher, and where Folsom Stadium is back over here. So this is when Pinyon became involved, and where we started our initial research. So I pulled did a little file search to find out, what had been recorded in the project area. And the only thing that had been recorded was by Pete Gleichman. He did a 2001, I think he did the field work in the 99, 2000, and as a 2001 report to the Boulder open space for all of their creek paths. So this was the Boulder Creek path, and I've highlighted in red the 3 areas of stonework that he attributes to the CCC Civilian Conservation Corps. And I believe this information was from the campus architect. And so it included the hut, the elaborate stone retaining walls, and then another set over by the high school, which I am pretty sure now was a separate construction project, that it wasn't associated with these. It's a different style, different materials, and it's off the campus. And as I'll explain a little later, there's another reason to conclude that. But so Gleichman did the first documentation. In that first summer of 2016, I went out and just did an initial kind of assessment to see what kind of condition the sites were in. As I mentioned, the 19th Street Bridge was washed out, but the 21st Street Bridge there is intact. The retaining walls, they remained intact, although I'll show you there was some damage. And then the interesting warming hut is still there. We made some recommendations. The project, was moving slowly, still in the planning stages. We went back out in May of 2017 and did a more detailed assessment of the resources. And you can see on the left the footing of the bridge. They think that the bridge had a higher level put onto it, and this would be the point where they think that occurred, that they raised the level up at some point after the original construction. They think the bridge might have been made just before the stonework project and then raised up because of flood issues in the early 30s. And then on the right is one of these really impressive retaining walls. As many of you know, one of the things that I gave a paper last year about homeless camps in the Front Range, and it seems like almost every project I've worked on in an urban setting, and I know a lot of my associates here have encountered this, homeless camps, and this survey actually I encountered two. This one, you can't see it here, but I'm just noting the spot because as I was climbing these terraces and documenting them, I got to this point, and right in front of me was a tent with a person in it, and I had to say, "Oh, excuse me, sorry, don't want to bother you," and kind of skipped over that particular area because it was occupied. A person was living there. So after we did that second assessment, we recommended to do a full Class 3 survey of the landscape associated with these stone walls and the bridges. And we decided to characterize them as one cultural landscape to stretch from Folsom to the 19th Street Bridge, because that's where we had evidence for all of the kind of contemporaneous, what might have been CCC activity. I did all the field work, and Poppie Gullet, our staff historian, did the historical research into the state and Norland archives to see what we could find on this area. I also do level 2 and have terror photography, and so I did a level 2 medium format documentation. And inspired by Pete Gleichman's 2001 photos in the snow, I realized that you could see the walls so much more clearly with these bands of snow covering the flat spots. So it was in the middle of winter, so I just waited till a good snowfall and made it a point to get out there and photograph it right after the snow, and it worked perfectly. I got really good photographs that can show the terraces, and there's 10 terraces coming down the hillside here. They're pretty impressive. I think Gleichman had thought there were 8 or 9, but I was able to finally determine there are in fact 10 coming down. And then after the snow melted, I went back and photographed the bridge. The 21st Street Bridge is what they wanted documented for level 2, and all we did 24 medium format level 2 photographs with archival film and archival prints. Then we had to do I did the Class 3 survey, and we from those two previous assessments, we knew there were two groups of construction. There were two groups of walls around the 21st Street Bridge and around the 19th Street Bridge. And this was done in March and April of 2018. And so we were able to map out the walls and the places where the walls had been damaged either by flooding or other events. So there's all of the just different spurs, and then so we documented the terraces, the bridge. There were very few features other than this one drain pipe. There, everything else was just natural, but there were, like I said, a few areas that we documented where there have been blowouts. This one was probably from the flood because it's right at that first flood level. And then I came across that camp I had seen, the homeless person's camp, and came back on a weekend and took some more photographs. It was abandoned at this point, and I included some of this in last year's presentation and in an exhibit at the University of Denver about the homeless project. But now, to integrate some of the historical things that Poppie found. She found historic photographs, and this one is said to be from 1935. And you can see that this is the creek. These are the terraces. This is where the retaining walls would be constructed. And they were mainly constructed because Folsom Field started out with its track extension, going into the stadium for the dashes, for the longer dash races would start into the stadium here. And this is early when they only had one set of stands. And you can see the erosion is terrible. So they did this to improve to keep it from eroding, because you can see how far it sticks out here. This is said to be a 1937 photograph. The stadium still only has one set of bleachers. And then you can see that the work is done at this point. And these terraces, these stone retaining walls are in place. And this is a beautiful photograph that she found, where you can see the bridge, the terraces, the spurs, all here right around the 21st Street Bridge. You can see here, this is when they've just finished the second terrace. So this is dated to around 1956. And here's a nice close-up of it. There were terraces up in this area, and then you can't see them very well, but they're in here too, because they're facing away from the camera. But there were terraces all in this area. And I've looked at some various historic photographs and you can see them. Okay, so that's the 21st Street group. And then there's another group in the area of the 19th Street Bridge. This set of walls appeared to be more constructed to actually hold back the floodwaters, and they could be associated with the further upstream walls, because the character is a little bit different in the construction. And then there's also the stone warming hut feature right here, which was said to be associated with a ice rink. Well, we also found another remnant of a wall that lines up with it. And then there's more walls that go up, and then more retaining walls on the hillside. And so the 19th Street Bridge, the structure had washed out, but the abutments are there. These are the creek retaining walls that travel for a good length along the creek on the left. And then these are the walls that go up to the campus at 19th Street, again, to get up to the main campus. Here's the warming hut looking, and it's interesting, as this project progressed, it opened the area up more, and more people were coming in here, and there was graffiti, and I found a rather large homeless camp over in this area, just to the left of, would have been to the east of this retaining wall. There was a camp with a dug out cache of the homeless folks had been storing their their backpacks in there. I was just curious to see what it was. I opened, I looked, and then I didn't bother it, of course, but it was really kind of interesting. And then kind of the last piece of the puzzle for this was that I'd heard that it was this possible skating rink, and then Poppie found out that it was a combination skating rink at tennis court. So they'd have it as tennis courts during the summer, and then they'd flood it in the winter. And we got a call that they had found all this flat concrete as they were bulldozing through for the bridge. And they followed it, they had actually fenced off, they'd kind of like, tried to avoid the wall and the warming hut, but they had to come through this area, and there was this large debris pile. And what I'm pretty sure it is that I'm pretty sure that when they demolished the tennis courts, probably in the 70s or 80s, they probably bulldozed this floor up against the hill, because this hill is just full of this flat concrete with a mesh, to hold the concrete in place. But it's thin, just enough to be a layer, a hard surface layer.
About 4 minutes.
Okay, thank you. It's working out good. And so in that 1937 photograph, you can see that feature. You can see the warming hut would be here, that corner wall that would be back over here, and then this is the feature that we see at that location. And then the going up, the bridge is in here, and then coming up the hill here. As of October 2020, they've finished this completely now, but they have the 2 bridges completed. And then as part of the mitigation, they had to produce, using our report and our photographs, an interpretive sign. And one of the final kind of interesting conclusions was that what Poppie found was that the only reference we found, we didn't find a CCC project reference. What we found was a 1939 report to the regents summarizing WPA projects on campus. And that it was over like a period of like 5 years or something. They said the following projects have been completed. And one of them was for erosion and access improvement for the athletic facilities by the WPA, not the CCC. So what we actually found out was that it was the WPA that did this project, not the CCC, although it was common for those programs to collaborate. And so that's the end of my presentation. And of course, I couldn't help but take my 4x5 camera out there and take some photographs at one point, and they turned out rather nice. So that is all. And I think I timed it just about right. Come back to the platform. All right. So thank you very much, everyone. And